The Palm Beach Civic Association brings you Palm Beach TV, the island's only newscast. We're sponsored by the Fortin Foundation of Florida. Our mission is to inform town residents about the unique challenges of island life and to highlight the actions and achievements of our leaders and the dynamic people who live here. Now the news.
This is Palm Beach TV. I'm Wendy Rutledge. One of the most interesting aspects of last week's Design Palm Beach town program was the promise to residents that they would actually be able to see what future zoning code changes might look like. Well, in case you missed that window into the future, we're here at Fairfax and Sammons to take a peek. As architects and designers from Fairfax and Sammons listened to the concerns and desires of town residents, they played a visionary role.
What would we like it to look like, and what would be the zoning code needed to allow that?
The work product produced by the Fairfax and Sammons team includes lovely split-level, split garage designs for the north end, more shaded tree-lined walkways in the south end, even arcade-lined covered sidewalks proposed for Worth Avenue. Though all of these concepts are clearly visually appealing, none could be approved under the current building code.
It becomes so restrictive that you don't have the flexibility to do anything that was actually interesting. Everything became, squeezed into a box.
It turns out that the classic suburban concept of generous setbacks away from the curb have led to zoning that leaves architects and home builders with little choice but to place the home in the center of the property, a restriction that, according to Sammons, prohibits the best use of the lot.
If you're relying on setbacks to give you privacy, that's only one way to get privacy. We got a house here that looks 4 directions, and of course, you're now looking at your neighbor. You can take the same house, which has a few additions here, and put it in the middle of the lot, or you can separate those additions and put them on the side of the lot, and you actually end up with a lot more privacy because the whole house is looking inward instead of outward. And that's the standard, tropical Mediterranean model.
Sammons is a great admirer of the stretch of Worth Avenue along Via Meisner.
Meisner wasn't really concerned with function. He was concerned with the scenographic, progression through the site. It was a movie. You walk through here, you see that, you look that way, you see this. And he was a set designer.
Ironically, the intimate charm and character of those iconic villas would not be buildable under today's code. Why? For many reasons, one of which is that they would violate density limitations, code restrictions Sammons believes should be changed.
The density is too low. 6 per acre is nothing. It's 48 per acre in Greenwich Village, which is the nicest place in New York. I know density is a bad word here, but if you lived there, you would likely not get in your car for most of the day because you could walk most places.
Sammons isn't advocating for high-rise density, which would force large numbers of people to get into their cars for their daily needs, but rather a low-rise alternative.
Low-rise density, where you're more apt to walk from place to place, is really rather pleasant. That's why we go to European cities. Paris is the densest city in the world. It is the densest city in the world, and very few high-rises.
Revising the current patched-together one-size-fits-all zoning code won't be an easy task. Though low-rise density for Midtown might make sense, Sammons is aware of North Enders who want to preserve the small bungalow charm of their neighborhoods.
In the North End, they're worried about their nice low-density area being destroyed by bigger and bigger houses.
And while the south end of the island is built out with condos, the changes Sammons would recommend run counter to the Florida Department of Transportation's plan to widen South Ocean Boulevard.
The state wants to widen it, actually needs to be narrowed. It actually needs to be given a bit of a wobble so that you don't just floor it all the way. Clues to maybe slow down.
more trees along South Ocean, and more shaded sidewalks, part of his South End plan. Ultimately, the revision of the town's building code should, Sammons says, be written with the diversity of the town's distinct neighborhoods in mind, and from the view of this architect, should meet this primary goal.
What we're asking for is charm, picturesque, interest. You can't regulate that. There's no way. You can only allow for the freedom for that to happen.
Another highly informative hour at last week's Design Palm Beach was the presentation on sea level rise, a topic really all island residents should learn about and plan for. Here's some of the highlights.
By 2040, they're projecting a sea level rise of between 10 and 17 inches. And by 2070, another 50 years out, they're projecting between 21 and 40 inches. So that's kind of how much water that we can expect the sea to kind of go up.
A fairly dire prediction based on scientific modeling of sea level rise, and a factor that will influence changes in the zoning code that may include building structures to avoid rising water.
There are stilts. These are primarily used, you'll see in the Florida Keys, and they're great because they put the building up over the storm surge, and then the water can kind of flow unimpeded underneath these buildings. It saves the buildings, and it saves a lot of loss.
Inevitably, the construction of seawalls, the increased height of seawalls, and the question of who will pay for them are all issues the town will have to address.
Those are things we have to think about and how to fund critical, expensive infrastructure like this. And does it have a public benefit for everybody, I think is the legal test that we would begin to use.
With FEMA already requiring new construction to be built higher, the town of Palm Beach will have to adapt its code to reflect this.
In 2023, we've got to raise a lot of our structures, should they be reconstructed, to 7 plus at least 1, so 8 feet above. Right, and so that's what we're going to deal with in our zoning code right now, and we'll deal with every generation will deal with the science as it comes.
We're down to the wire as we approach our annual awards breakfast featuring the world's best-selling author, James Patterson. There are still a few seats available for the March 22nd breakfast at the Breakers. Hear more about the renowned writer's own life as he shares stories from his recent book, James Patterson by James Patterson. Tickets to attend are $200. Please call our office at 561-655-0820 to reserve your spot. And that wraps it up for us. Thank you as always for watching. Catch us anytime on social media or our website, and we'll see you next time right here on Palm Beach TV, a production of the Palm Beach Civic Association.
Palm Beach TV is a production of the Palm Beach Civic Association. We thank our sponsor, the Fortin Foundation of Florida, and encourage you, our viewers, to let us know how we can provide news coverage that best serves our members and residents.